began to climb. As she collected the eggs, she decided she would try to make Cuchulain and Sethlin be cool with each other again. Geisa was the ancient law of Ireland, but it could only go so far, and she knew a good breakfast could work any amount of miracles. In the end, she climbed down the tree with one of the eggs in her makeshift toga pocket, one in her mouth and the other in the crook of her elbow. The process took about 15 minutes, but she realized she'd been preparing for hours. The execution took a short amount of time and appeared graceful, though it was actually painstaking. She felt how hardened her feet had become, and how dexterous she was at tree climbing. When he was eating his egg that morning, Laine feared what would happen when the alcohol had worn off. Would Cuchulain and Selhern still be friends? She started a fire and got the water ready. She realized Cuchulain's face had become a blur in her memory, that she wouldn't actually remember what Max looked like if she ever did run into him. She was afraid of his anger, which was as sharp as his newly fixed spear. E convinto che se Cuchulain si innamorasse diventerebbe molto più simpatico e smetterebbe di essere sempre così scontroso con tutti. She was convinced that if Cuchulain fell in love, he would become nicer and stop being so grumpy with everyone all the time. When she brought Sethlin forward, perspiration boiled up under her armpit. They sat by the fire. When Sethlin hunched his shoulders, they assumed the same shape as Cuchulain's, pressed into his ears, which were red, hot bricks. Laine realized they were heckling each other again. Cuchulain was watching her with a grin on his face as she disappeared once more into the tent and into a flashback of a visit back to Montana. For a moment it was like she was back in the Bidroot Valley, and she, Mom, and Jenny, Holly's older sister, were at the cafe across from Mr. T's, getting breakfast. She looked left to where there was the church group she used to go called Awanas, now a jerky shop, and where the Lager Day field was beyond that. She swung the door open, and Jenny was talking but greeted her when she came in. Laine was grateful for her resilient spirit. Her life was full of potential and beauty. And it was because she came from these people. Her life was a smudged photograph she kept seeing in a new light, where new images appeared. With friends and family, nothing else seemed to matter. She could see the edge of Tin Cup Road, where the builders had come from. The basin up that road was where the town got its irrigation water. Harlan, Mom's ex, was on the board for the Tin Cup Water Committee. Tin Cup Road ran perpendicular to Main Street and the Veterans Field that held Loggers' Days. It was marked by a wooden totem pole with gigantic loggers' boots on top. Across the street was the house Holly and her family used to live before her mom moved them back to the reservation. Mom moved us to the reservation so she could drink, Jenny said. She took us to parties with her, and we would walk home at 3 a.m, and our grandma would get mad at us, thinking we were getting in trouble, but we were just with our mom. "You're drunk," Cuchulain said, as Laine came out of the tent. "No, it's just a hangover," Sethlin said. But Laine knew Sethlin was George G. and Max had been forced to live at the shelter for at-risk youth, where she would work later as an adult. The cryptograph worked it all out for her. "Stop fighting, the both of you. He's joining us for breakfast," Laine said. "Move over, he's sitting here." For once Laine felt like the one who was driving the big truck. She watched Cuchulain stuff another egg into his mouth, eating it in 2 bites. He preferred it boiled. She whispered something in his ear, amazed at the power she had as a youth counselor, thinking of all the hats she'd worn throughout her life: teacher, writer, counselor. She tried to break it down in a way he would understand. "The world twirls on the end of a spear," she whispered. "It will fall without equilibrium. Sometimes doing nothing is the right thing, like not seeking revenge on someone who hurts you." She tried to distinguish the difference between Cuchulain, the young champion of the Ulster cycle, and Max, who broke her heart, but despite their varying ages, they had turned into the same person, and it was still so hard to believe. He was only 17, like the children at the home. His tongue was a slippery bait. A wry smile crept on Sethlin's lips as he chewed his cud. His elbows prodded on his inner thigh. She was looking away the whole time. "So, how'd you get kicked out?" Sethlin asked. I didn't, I ran, Cuchulain said. Only because you were about to get kicked out, Sethlin said.